We are there, so now it's time to hit the start webinar. Well, hello. I am excited. I think that we are now live, but I'm excited. I'm Jim Morgan. I'm with Life's Co-Pilot, and we are very blessed to have tonight one of the ones who brought adult daycare to Indianapolis. Okay,
I wondered how you're going to say that.
So she's been very instrumental in this, and I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in Adult Day that talk about how they learned from you about their profession, no matter what company they're at. So let's kind of get from there. Tina McIntosh with Joy's House Adult Day. Would you tell us more about you and about Joy's House, and then let's kind of have a conversation about Adult Day?
Yeah, we're an open book, so. By we, I do mean Joy's House. I recognize that it's you and me here, Jim, but ask any questions you want. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's given me a lot of credit to say one of the pioneers in Adult Day, although at the same time, I've been doing it for 23 years. So, yeah, there's that. But there are other adult days in Indiana that started in the 80s. Unfortunately, a couple of them are no longer with us. But, when we started 23 years ago and I would go to do a speaking engagement, I would say, how many of you in the room have heard of adult day services? And you might get one person in the back raising his hand. Now, when we go and do those speaking engagements and ask, it's really beautiful to see how many people know about this option of care. Still room for improvement. So I appreciate opportunities like this to talk. But it's pretty awesome. When I think about, and I know we're going to get into more about what Adult Day is, but when I think about who I've been able to meet in 23 years, who I've been able to be a part of serving, and the fact that if there's a heaven the way that I hope and think there is, one day I'll get to see all those people again. It's going to be a pretty cool homecoming. So yeah, 23 years. What do you want to know? I mean, we've got like 40 whole minutes. I can tell you everything.
What got you into this? First of all, let's kind of go from the very beginning of Adult Day, and then we'll go into Adult Day. But yeah.
Yeah, if anybody watches and they've heard this, they're like, oh, I got it. But the short is, and again, ask me anything you want about it. But I went to Ball State, was where I did undergrad and graduate work. Loved it. I was a Delta Zeta there, loved sorority experience. And as part of sorority, we had to get involved in the community, do philanthropic work. It was a requirement. And so I had done a lot of philanthropic work. One of the places I went to was a center called Alpha Center in Muncie, Indiana. And it was a small adult day service. And those people stole my heart. There was something really magical. I mean, you get it. You're in this industry, like you understand there was something just magical that got in my soul and kind of stuck. I remember watching, there was this one woman who was a client at the Alpha Center, and she never spoke. She sits down at the piano and she starts playing this incredible music. And you could see her life, coming back in here. You could see her long-term memory. I mean, the diagnosis for her, being Alzheimer's, it was really beautiful to watch, just watch her take hold of who she had always been. And I always remember that moment with her. And I went into other things. I went into event planning. It was super fun being 20 some years old and doing event planning. One of my biggest clients was the Colts. So that was a pretty cool gig. I always say I was either setting up or tearing down events at 3 a.m. and loved it. But then when I was 27, one of my best friends committed suicide. My dad, who had been an alcoholic and who I didn't speak with, was beaten by 5 guys with baseball bats and left for dead. And on a street corner in Fort Wayne, which is where I'm from. And as the oldest of his 3 children, I was called on to come and make preparations at that time for his funeral. He's still alive. But it was life-changing for me, those things and some other stuff. And you've been there where you look in the mirror one day and say, who is it that I'm supposed to be? And for me as a Christian, what am I not listening to about where God's hand is trying to lead me? And so my mom took me on a cruise and surrounded me by water. And I am very spiritually drawn to water. And I came home from that, Jim, and I quit my job. And I'll say this, and I say it, please understand jokingly, I did everything short of prostitution and drug dealing for about 3 years. You know, if it was legal and ethical, I was doing it and safe to get Joy's House started. But when we found our location in Broad Ripple, it was trashed. I mean, there were, I can't even tell you all the things that were wrong with it. And all of my friends and family came together and said, how can we help? It was, when I look back on it, it was incredible. Like, how does that happen? You know?
Yeah, that's amazing.
So,
And that really kind of, so it's so often in this industry, the senior care industry, there's always a personal story, where it started, where, you're taking care of a family member or a loved one or what have you. So yes. So tell me, and also you got that chance to actually have a peek behind the curtain, while you were an intern in college or whatever. So that's great. So yeah.
yes.
So, because I don't think a lot of people even knew this kind of industry existed or this kind of service existed. So tell me about Adult Day. If let's say that whoever's watching this video or watching this live today has heard the name, or maybe they haven't of what Adult Day is, and they don't really understand what that means. Is it just a adult babysitting, or what is this? Yeah.
Right. Well, there's so many other words. Adult day service is what we say. There's adult day center, there's adult day care. And so I've had people say to me like, oh, so it's like childcare, like a childcare center for adults. And I'm like, well, that's a horrible way to say it. You're exactly right. I mean, like the setup is the same. We're open Monday through Friday. Typically, some centers have different hours, 8 to 5, 7 to 6, whatever center you're looking at. And your loved one comes to Joy's House, has a reason to get up in the morning, a reason to put their clothes on in the right order. Those of you who are caring for a loved one often, you know what I mean by that, but brush their teeth and bathe and eat and come out into the world and come to a community where we know their diagnoses and their medications and their medical team and what their limitations are. We also know, who they've been their entire lives and what they love and what makes them smile and how to redirect them and, how to keep them safe. And then at night they get picked back up and they go back home and they sleep in their own bed. They eat dinner at the table with their family. They get to continue their lives living in what is called home and community-based care, meaning they live at home and they come out into the community.
And then this gives the family, the family caregiver, either a day off or an opportunity to go to work. I suppose either way. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, it's so many things. It's the guy who is always, it's the guy who's always golfed on Thursdays. And he's with his buddies, and now he's 75 years old. He's been doing it for 15 years, but maybe his wife needs a lot of care and he hasn't been able to do that. It gives him those Thursdays back. Or it's the daughter who is caring for her father and he had a stroke and he really is not doing well sitting home alone. I mean, we'll need to talk about COVID here in a second. That was like a really bad living case study for us about the importance of what we do. But, it's for that daughter, she's got to continue working and she's got small children at home. So I tell people all the time, caregivers, whether it's you work and there's a routine that you need to stay in, or it's that you just need to go home when nobody else is there and like take in the energy that is not surrounding you, because we all know what that feels like. Sometimes it's hard to be alone in your own home, and we need that.
Well, and I think the caregivers, I think it's starting to get better known of just how hard caregiving is to a family member, probably in general, but to a family member particularly, where there's no off time. It's, you're always on. I remember going through Alzheimer's Association has a dementia friends class, and one of the things that I recall from that was stunning to me was that 65% of the time the caregiver dies before the person they're caring for does, because of that nonstop 24/7 365 stress load.
So let me tell you this. CDC, there was a brief that cites that about 40% of respondents in Indiana indicate having 2 or more chronic conditions. So these are caregivers, 40% of them who responded which is about 1 in 4 of women, 1 in 5 of men. Okay. I've said they have 2 or more chronic conditions, including COPD, arthritis, depressive disorder, kidney disease, or diabetes. So now you have these chronic conditions in almost half of the caregivers in Indiana alone. And then you throw in caregiving, which, let's be honest, when you're a caregiver, there's a good chance you are physically, emotionally, and financially exhausted. And it's no wonder caregivers often die before their loved ones. And so, yeah, one of the most important things that we ask caregivers when they come to Joy's house, before we say anything else, we'll say, how are you? And can I tell you, Jim, how many people say, well, my wife, and they'll launch into the diagnosis or the behavior or the need. And then we'll say, but Jim, how are you? And how many times that results in people just busting into tears because no one's really asked them that question in a long time. And for them to really think about how they're doing, it brings a lot of vulnerability. And so for us at Joy's House, our mission is twofold. It is, one, the adult day side of things, and then the other is caregiver support and education services. So on the adult day side, we've got 2 locations. We've got Broad Ripple, which is where things started for us. That's the old house that we renovated and the community came together. And then we have a second location at University of Indianapolis, just right off campus there. And before the global pandemic, we were looking at what other areas of the city might we need to go into. Right now, we're going to just be grateful that we're still here and still serving. We lost in our adult day programs, we lost 70% of our, what we call guests, so our clients, 70% during the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah, either COVID related, or here's where the really bad living case study comes in, is people realized, one, how exhausting caregiving really is, particularly doing it 24/7, without any of that respite. But the other side of things was the person living with the diagnosis. We realized that we provide so much community and socialization, nutrition, purpose for people, that a lot of them kind of wilted without that. And it was really hard to just watch the emails and the calls come in telling us that somebody had passed away or they had fallen or they progressed, and we wouldn't be seeing them again on this side of COVID. So
that's that. I mean, the mental health side of things has been staggering as well. I don't know if you know Kimball Richardson or not, but he's with Community, and he was telling me, we did a mental health class like this recently, and he just floored me because we were talking about how much it's picked up or what have you, and his stat was that they had at that community, that just one hospital had 5,000 calls in 1 month, first time callers.
no,
There's no one can handle that. No one has staff for that.
No, it's a lot. I mean, it's been a lot for all of us. And so for us, we're so happy that we're still here, and that we're still serving. We are seeing so many new people come in, new guests come in to both locations. We're still accepting new families. So don't hear me wrong. We are still accepting families. And if we're not the right place for somebody, we're not going to try and do a hard sell. We're talking about someone's life and their livelihood and their purpose, which is the most important thing for all of us. And so Laura Johnson, who's our senior VP of Family Service, said one time, it's not like we're like, got a mom for 1995. We got a service for you and we'll throw in a knife. I mean, these are people that you love. And so if we're not the right place for somebody, whether it be our Broad Ripple or UND location, there are other great adult days in greater Indianapolis and in Indiana that we can refer people to as well. So I just want to make sure I say that out loud.
So is it predominantly all Monday through Friday? Is it some people just a respite day? Is it some people doing it weekly? I mean, how does that work for people?
Yeah. Is it a leap year? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
It's really whatever the family needs and wants. If they need Monday, Wednesday, Friday every week and there's a set schedule, that's great because we all like routine. And for us, we can make sure we have the right activities and the right food and the right staff and, all of that. But for others, it might be 5 days a week, or it might be, they'll let us know what they need for the coming month and they really think they're only going to attend a few days. I will say, pro tip for adult day, if you are going to have your loved one attend an adult day service, you really should have them attend at least, I'd like to say 3 days a week, because it's hard. Without routine, things are hard, and so it's important for your loved one to have that routine. It's also important for us on our side, so we can make sure we have everything properly prepared for them and that they have the best day, the most, exceptional, enriching day that they possibly can have. And without a schedule, that's harder to do.
So do you do like 1 day respites as well, or?
Yeah, we can do that, but there's a lot that goes into becoming a guest at Joy's house. So if we have a Saturday caregiver day out, it might be a one-off. Somebody says, hey, I heard you have a service and it's on a Saturday, we'd do that once a quarter. And it's on a Saturday and I'd love to bring my grandfather to come and stay with you for that day. We do kind of a mini assessment, but to get someone into adult day, at least at Joy's house, there is an assessment process. There is an in-person visit. There is a conversation or a communication with whoever your primary care doctor or your primary specialist is. Like, we really want to know your loved one. And we ask some weird questions. I mean, we ask, if your loved one could have any wish other than to take away a diagnosis, what would it be? And we learn a lot, about people. Like, if I asked you that, what would your answer be for you?
That's a good question. I'll have to think about that one for a while. I don't know. So yeah.
Right. But it might be, that, gosh, my mom used to love horseback riding and she hasn't been able to horseback ride for the last 22 years. And nothing is more important to her than that. So then maybe we can bring in the Agape miniature horses to come in and visit with her, and she can help to groom them. There was, as a matter of fact, we had one guy who wanted to ride horses. His name is Mark, Mr. Mark, and he wanted to ride horses. And so, living with multiple sclerosis, and we brought in a horse. We brought him a cowboy hat and a horse, and he got to get on the horse and walk around our property. Do you know how happy that man was? For another guy, it was Mr. Russ. He wanted to go to Hawaii one more time. Well, it was evident with his diagnoses that he was never going to make it back to Hawaii. He couldn't have endured the plane ride. So we brought Hawaii to him, and we set everything up like it was Hawaii. And we played in more miniature pools and had more water gun fights and, slushy drinks than I could possibly tell you about. And it was awesome. So we ask questions like that. We also ask some questions that sometimes people don't understand, like, is there anyone in mom's family that she doesn't want to talk about? Maybe there was some kind of abuse. And so maybe her father was, and it's horrible to say, but it happens. Maybe her father was physically abusive. And so we're not going to celebrate Father's Day around her. We want to be very respectful about what makes people happy and fulfilled in their lives. Fulfilled lives is actually one of our values. So yeah, there's a process to go through it, but it's worth every second of it.
How long does it take for someone normally to get onboarded there?
We can turn it around pretty quick. If they've had a TB test recently or a chest x-ray, and we can get the doctor, that's often the holdup, is the doctor can turn the paperwork back around to us. It's pretty quick. I thought you were going to say, how long does it take for somebody to like coming? Because
well, that's a good question as well. Yeah, because I'm sure that there's a lot of resistance,
so much. I mean, what do you always hear? Like, you're not going to take me somewhere and drop me off, right, son? Like that, you're not going to do that, are you? I mean, in my head, it's like trying to get people in a car in the first couple of weeks at Joy's house. I picture them like suction cup to the, door frame, like they're not going to get in. The first couple weeks are typically pretty rough because they don't know us. They don't know our vibe. They don't know our energy. They don't know that we're going to feed them and love on them and respect them. And once they understand that, my favorite day, I've said it 1,000 times, my favorite day is when a guest is sitting at a table and a caregiver comes in to get them. And the guest turns to them and says, well, hold on, I'm not done yet. I'm like, yes, like, they like us. They like us. They feel comfortable here. So I don't know. I can't imagine, like, it brings tears to my eyes to think about the day that I will no longer be able to do this work, or no longer be good for Joy's House, or no longer be doing it, because it's awesome. And I don't get to spend enough time with the guests as it is. So.
Well, that's, so tell me, who is a ideal candidate for an adult day in general?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
You've got all these different choices. You've got assisted living, you've got, skilled living, you've got, memory care, you've got all these choices out there today.
Yeah.
So tell me which ones should seriously consider, adult.
So let me answer this kind of in a round, and we'll land. Okay. Because you just said that and it clicked for me to answer how to answer that question. An ideal candidate is somebody who wants to continue living in their home. An ideal candidate is someone who has a primary caregiver in their home who wants to continue having their loved one living at home and can, like, it doesn't matter if my husband has a diagnosis and I want him to live at home. It doesn't matter if I can't do it for whatever reason, whether it's here, like, for whatever reason. An ideal candidate would be somebody then who can thrive, maintain or thrive, depending on, where they are in life, in home and community-based setting. And so home and community-based might be adult foster care, which we don't have enough of in the state. It might be at home, non-medical companion care. So someone coming in your home and helping with some minor chores and helping you to, bathe and brush teeth and get dressed and do things of that nature. It might be a home healthcare agency that comes in and does more medical work, or it might be adult day services. So I think that kind of answers that. I will also tell you, people often don't look into adult day because they say there's no way I can afford it. Well, Joy's House in Broad Ripple is $75 for a full day. It's nothing, right? However, if you add up, if they came 5 days a week, now you start doing your math and you're like, ooh, that adds up. That's money that I hadn't planned on. Well, if you're on Medicaid aging and disabled waiver, that money can come toward the respite. Or if we have Title III through SACOA, then we can pay for that because that's respite for the caregiver. There is private pay for us as well. And then we have a scholarship fund. And so our scholarship fund has allowed us in 23 years to never turn a family away because they can't afford the service. So I'm so proud to say that, like, that's 23 years, Jim, never turned anybody away.
You use the word Title III. Okay.
Yeah.
So, assume that there's somebody who's going to watch this that's never heard any of these terms. So what is that?
So Title III is actually money that is given SACOA for our local area agency on aging and for people living with a disability. They have several funds that they can pull from, one of which is Title III, and that's actually respite for the caregiver. So it's a break for the caregiver, adult day, like,
there you go.
Perfect example. Now, if somebody really has questions, they can call us. They can email me at tina@joyshouse.org. They can go to joyshouse.org and look us up, call us 317-254-0828 and ask any questions. And we will help you find the right place for service for you. We will also help connect you to SACOA if you're not already connected, because you should be. SACOA is an incredible place to go for support and service when you are aging or living with some kind of a disability.
So when someone's considering this as an option, maybe they're I have met people who are customers or people who live go to adult day as the client. Okay. And I've run into ones that live by themselves at home, but then come in during the day, so they can get their activities, daily living done and social activities and what have you. So they're pretty high functioning, but not really able to do it on their own for the big stuff during the day. But I would think that's a rarity. Okay. I would think that's probably not your core, clientele.
Yeah.
I'm just making a wild guess here from having to deal with my own family members over the years. Okay. And tell me if I'm completely nuts, but my guess is a lot of times it's a child or someone else or a caregiver that is the initial conversant trying to figure out.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. I understand. It's very rare for somebody to say, I'm calling looking for service. By the way, I don't know why I still do this. This is not a cell phone. It's old school.
It's
right?
a flip phone. Yeah.
They've got the cord and they're calling me and they're like, and it's a rarity for somebody to call and say, hey, I'm calling for services for myself. I mean, this happened not very often, but I will tell you that for Joy's House, most of our adults at Joy's House are aging. Not everybody. I mean, I think our youngest guest right now is 20 and living with a developmental disability. And we have several younger adults who come to be with us. And it might be that they're living with, paranoid schizophrenia or autism or Down syndrome, water in the brain. You can kind of list out a myriad of diagnoses. Most of our folks are aging. Aging is a deceiving word. I mean, nowadays, I don't even know what old is anymore. Like, who are you asking? Are you asking a 4-year-old? Because if that's the case, I'm ancient. Are you asking a 45-year-old? It's going to be a different answer. But most of our folks are 70s is probably a median age for us right now. It changes all the time. But, we had one woman, Miss Perline, who she told us she was like 98. And after a few years, we were like, I think she was 102 or 106. She knew what she was doing, Jim. It wasn't she kept getting younger.
Yeah.
But it's really beautiful at Joy's House to see how our older adults interact with our younger adults. I wasn't sure in the beginning what that would look like. And it's funny because this population believes they're at Joy's House to care for this population. And this population believes they're there to care for them. And so it all just works. We have a lot of people living with a dementia, strokes, MS, Parkinson's, you name a diagnosis, we've probably seen it. But what I do want to say before we talk caregiver stuff, I do want to say that there are other adult days who might specialize only in younger adults. There was one adult day for a while, I don't believe they're still open, that only focused on older adults who spoke Russian as their primary language. There's a lot of different service out there. And then you have to look at levels too. There's a level 1, 2, and 3. And so level 3 is going to be more medical care on an ongoing basis. They're going to have nurses on staff there with your loved one. And then places like Joy's House, who are on the non-medical side, it doesn't mean these people don't have medical needs. They do, but we just don't have to have a nurse on staff. We can still help them with meds. We can still help with eating. We can still help with toileting and transferring, getting from one place to the next. But we can't change their meds. We can't alter things. We follow the plan that has been put in place by the medical folks.
Excellent. So what is a different? You say level 1, 2, and 3. I get again. When we're doing these, you never know who's going to be seeing it for the first time.
Sure.
So yeah,
sure. I mean, that's really the basics of it. Is level 1 is non-medical. Level 3 is high medical need, and then level 2 is a lower medical need.
Okay.
So I will be clear though to say that places like Joy's House, who are level 1, we still have people who would qualify for a higher level of care. The family just has to sign off saying they know that we do not have medical staff, on staff. I mean, we all know CPR, first aid, AED, all the basics. We're trained in diagnoses and things of that nature. But if there was a true medical emergency, we're on the phone with 911.
Right.
That is not going to be something that we'll do all the basics, but we don't do deeper medical care.
So we're going back to caregivers. Okay, so now we have a caregiver out there, and again, like we just said, that most of the times it's someone else that's making the call about checking into adult day. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's probably a caregiver. It could be a kid from out of town. I mean, I suppose too. I mean, I suppose that you can be any different person.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a place for the person to come back home to every night. So it's probably in that household. Okay, it's when I'm making a wild guess, but I'm guessing
most of the time, yes.
Yeah. So tell me, when someone's making that reach out to you, I'm sure that they're they may be confused. They may not even know what they're getting into, so can you kind of walk me through a little bit about what that call's like for that tentative person that's calling and go, what is this and where do I go from here?
There's a lot of listening, a lot of active listening, a lot of prompting. We might prompt with a question, or I heard you say this, can you tell me more about that? It is, I don't know if I can find the right word, overwhelming for caregivers. And I feel like when they make a phone call to Joy's house, they know they learn very quickly, they can trust the person on the other end of the call or who they meet when they come in the door. And they're fragile. I mean, it's, you're finally sharing what's going on with your loved one. If you're making the call to us, you're recognizing and saying out loud that you need some kind of support system, which we all do. But we know a lot of caregivers think they have to shoulder the burden all by themselves. And then it's like, okay, what are we going to do next? So if it's a good fit for Joy's house, we can bring them in. But with our mission being twofold, Jim, it's not just about what can we do to care for your loved one. What can we do for you, as the caregiver? And so we have always had a menu of things that we would do. Now, on this side of COVID, we're re-examining what is it that caregivers need and want. And so we're doing some really cool things. We have a care kit that we've had forever. If somebody is a caregiver, get a hold of us. We will send you, or you can pick up a care kit. It's a binder that is like a 101 class in caregiving. And it's a place to keep all of your information in one place. So it's really a brilliant concept and I'd say very simple in the way we put it out, but it's not. I mean, it's a lot of detailed thinking. We also have Caregiver Crossing, which is a podcast. It used to be a radio show, and thankfully we moved it to a podcast right before the pandemic. So that's Caregiver Crossing. And then with partnership with Sequoia and their foundation and their venture studios, we are getting ready to put out a prototype, and we'll be launching next year a digital ecosystem called Caregiver Way. And it is a place for caregivers to go and have trusted information and know that it's been vetted, by a board of professionals, and to have community with other caregivers. And so we're really excited to have that come out. And I think I've mentioned it to you before, but since we have witnesses here, I'll say we got to figure out how we can not marry up, but how we can hold hands a little bit tighter even with that, because I think there's a lot of opportunity with the great work you're doing with Life's Copilot too.
Well, I think there's got to be something that be done.
For sure.
Do you do any work with or any partnership or any alignment for your clients with caregiver homes at all?
Yeah, we love caregiver homes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it seemed to be a natural fit for the two of you guys to be working together. So
yeah, they're a great partner. I mean, non-medical in-home companion cares are great partners for us. Nursing homes are great partners. Not everybody gets to live in their home until the day they draw their last breath. A lot of people need skilled nursing care, rehab. Home healthcare agencies are great for us. Hospice. So one of the programs we're getting ready to launch is an end-of-life doula program. And the end-of-life doula program, we're being trained right now. We're developing the program itself, but we will be walking, hospice is incredible and reduces pain and suffering. And they have some other services, depending on the hospice home or hospice facility. What we will be doing is will be hired and retained by the dying individual and help them figure out between now and the day you draw your last breath, how do you want to live your life? What resolutions do you have to make? What legacy do you want to leave behind? And then how do you want to die? If you could design your death, who would be there? What's the room look like? What colors on the walls? What's the smell in the air? What are you hearing? Not that everything will go the way we want, death happens when it happens, but if you could design it, what would it be like? And then helping the families, because one of the things we hear from all the time from caregivers is, I put so much into my identity as a caregiver. I was all in. Jim, if you're my brother and you're caring for me, you're suddenly not just my brother, you're my nurse, you're my cook, you're my beautician, you're my groomer. That's not really a thing for people, but you're bathing me, you're caring for me, you know what I mean? Like you're doing all of the things for me. You're my driver, you're everything. And then when I pass over, you lose a part of yourself, a part of your identity and what you've been doing for Lord only knows how many years. And so we'll be working then with caregivers on what does that transition look like after your loved one passes away. So we had a lot of big stuff on the horizon and things we are doing already for caregivers, but it's really exciting to be able to have the support of other caregiving organizations in the state, and the Division of Aging is a partner with us, and to be able to be innovative. It's really exciting. I know, I realize I'm saying that and I'm looking at you who is like Mr. Innovator. So you get it.
Yeah. It's fun to do. It's fun. You're like, find a problem, figure out how to fix it. But it's, and, and it's one of those things that, you and I were talking before we started this conversation today live, was you and I were talking about our own challenges that we're dealing,
Oh, please.
And it's like, we live this every day, non-professionally as well, and quite frankly, that's one reason Life's Co-Pilot exists. And I'm pretty confident that's some of the reason that some of the things you have going on. Even with the contacts that you and I have, and I don't know if the Rolodex is a word that people understand anymore, but in that vein, I know I have all these people I can contact, and I know these people, I have this big list, which is a godsend, but it's still very stressful trying to figure out how to find these solutions for the myriad of things that pop up. So and they always pop up in clusters.
Well, and in crisis, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right, exactly.
like, you can't plan for all the things. Well, it's like you've always heard the, like a plumber always has a leaky sink,
Mm-hmm.
In her home. It's the same thing, right? Just because we're in this industry doesn't mean we are experts. Then we can give great advice. Sometimes it is hard to take your own advice.
Right.
But we do the best
or to
we
get
can,
siblings
right?
and other family members to listen.
Yes. Yes.
But no, I really do this, so,
I know. And that is something that, man, we see, I tell caregivers all the time, like the relationships you had when you were 16 with your siblings is coming back out now that you are caring for mom or dad. Like it just happens, right?
Yeah.
There's always that little kid in us. And we always still have that relationship in us of what it was in the past. And so, yeah, you're not wrong.
So while we're on this would be a really good conversation to have, I think, because there's, I guarantee you these, the person, the family member that mom or dad or whoever's living with that needs a service like yours, they probably have siblings in other parts of the country who find this to be, what in the world are you doing that for? We're spending all mom's money, or whatever it is.
Yep.
How do you help them have that conversation and support them in that they're doing the right thing?
Yeah. Caregiver Way is going to be part of that solution.
Okay.
Truly. Because it's hard when you're dealing with people in other parts of the country or other parts of the world. This is going to sound like such a simple answer. And it is really. Let them have their turn. Let them come in and spend a weekend with mom. And you go away and be unreachable for the weekend. I'm telling you, it changes everything. I've seen more siblings come back and say, I don't know how you do that. Like, do you know that she blah, blah, blah? Do you know that she did this? Do you know that she said this 1,000 times? And the primary caregiver will say, yeah, I do. That's what I'm doing every single day. Another bit of advice that I will give, and this is coming out of left field here. Okay. So bear with me. Teepa Snow. I will say that in our closing of our time together here. If you don't know who Teepa Snow is and you have a loved one living with Alzheimer's or dementia, look her up. It's TEEPA Snow. But one of the biggest problems caregivers have is, how do I redirect my loved one? Or, man, he just says the meanest things to me and I'm really struggling with that. How do I respond to that? Those are the things we find we're coaching caregivers on every single day. It's the heartbreak that happens when caring for a loved one and helping them work through some of that heartbreak and find I'm going to sound so cheesy when I say it, but the moments of joy, right? I mean, the quiet moments together, the moments where you smile or you see in the glimmer of someone's eye, you can see their love and, your relationship clicks. Like, we want caregivers to have more of those moments and to be able to keep themselves healthy and sane and strong, so that if they want their loved one to live at home until their last day on this earth, we are part of empowering them to be able to do that.
That's very good. So it's just trying to figure out, like I said, every one of us, every family's going to have their own little dynamics and all the different things that go with that. But
Yeah.
But I think that part of the thing is that I've heard so often, and I'm, maybe it's kind of masochistic, but I have joined all of these caregiver support groups, like on Facebook and stuff like that. Oh my God, the desperation and it's so dark. There's very little joy that ever comes out there. They're constantly overwhelmed. They're, what do you do? And I see such bad advice coming from the other caregivers. So it's like the blind leading the blind on so many issues here. But desperation and potentially giving up seems to be the underlying theme of most of these things,
Yeah, you can't do it anymore, right? That's
Yeah.
people just like, I can't do it anymore. I will tell you, before the pandemic, we really wanted to create a place for caregivers to come, to have community and safety and all that, respite and education and all of the things, connections. I'm so glad we didn't build a place with 4 walls and a really cool roof to do it, because now, I hate to say thanks to the pandemic, because I feel like people are going to throw tomatoes at the screen, but thanks to the pandemic, we realized that it really needs to be done digitally, and that we can create a place that is embracing and that is trusted online. And there will be a place for caregivers to give back to other caregivers as well. But there'll be that place to go and find those moments of respite, and it will be on demand. It'll be open 24/7. And so if it's 3 a.m. and a caregiver is at their wit's end about something, it's can't get mom to go back to bed, there will be some kind of resource and education for them that's short. That's the other thing. Like in 2 minutes and 37 seconds, here's a tip, a practical tip on how to do it. And so we're really, really excited to get it started. It's also scary, man. Like I work with people. I like the humans and the flesh and how to, how to love on them and care for them and keep them safe. It's a whole different world for us, but we're really excited about it and happy to be partnering with Sequoia, because Sequoia gets it in a way that we just don't,
And it's so needed. It's just, people just need a place to be validated, if anything else.
We all like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
it's like it's like a young couple with babies. The desperation with what am I doing wrong? What can I it's so many times it's the same thing.
That's right. I always say, if there's a camera in my face, I won't say this, and here we are. But it is. It is very similar. We hear caregivers say that all the time. Like, how did I become the parent here? You're not the parent. Mm-hmm. You're still the child. You're just taking on a different perspective of your relationship. So,
but part of the thing is they get to be the child again if they can bring in support, like you at Adult Day, or like a home care person, or somebody else that can come in and take some of these tasks off the table, so that they can actually have more of the family relationship that they should have, rather than just being the scold or the what have you.
The heavy, like always being the heavy.
For some reason, that's always my role. My siblings always leave it to me to go have the hard conversations. But anyway.
Well, I could probably identify why. I'm pretty good at it. But and you're willing, and that's part of it. But if someone's in a caregiving situation, whether you're in it now or you see it coming in the future, reach out to us at Joy's House. And again, I'm Tina. You can ask for me. You can talk with my coworkers, are fantastic. And just know that if we don't have the answer or don't have the resource for you, we will point you in the right direction. So I'm grateful for the time to be able to do this, Jim, and for what you do always.
Well, thank you very much. I know that you have another event to go to, so we're going to wrap this up here for
Well,
you.
I
So-
do. And, there's husband, dogs, and kids in the other room. And I'm like, oh no, I can hear them coming.
Well, I want to do a real quick screen share real quick. I want to show people what's coming up. So first of all, just, I want to thank you on this, and we'll come back to you here in a second, Tina, but this was Tina tonight. On the 8th, we have, this is going to be kind of fun. We have reverse mortgage specialists. We have someone from independent living. We have seniors, expert realtors, and we have myself with Caring Transitions. And we're going to talk to people about how, if you're, say, 62 or older, you can get rid of your house that you're sitting in and right now you might be afraid you can't find another one. Well, now I'm going to show you a way you can not have any payments and also get rid of your house and get another house without payments and find a nest to settle in while a new house is being built. So it's just, there's a big part of the society that's having that issue. We fix that. Got one coming in, Colleen Resnick. Do you know her, Tina? She is with Indiana Health Fund. And for people who have medical bills that are overwhelming, they actually help you pay your medical bills. She's going to be teaching about how to handle that. And we have someone coming in with the Indiana Historical Society talking about how to preserve family heirlooms. So we got some really good stuff coming up, but you can always come to Life's Copilot, and there is resources here. There's an ongoing calendar that you can get into. So I'll do my screen share. So anyway, I just wanted to let people know that. Thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing with us. I think that people need to know these options are there for them and how to access them. And Tina, you're a star. So thank you very much.
No, you're awesome yourself. So thanks and have a good night.
Have fun tonight with whatever you're doing.
Thanks.
So I'll see you later. Take care.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.